Welcome, Slayer the Alchemist. And on today's video, 5 things that computers have ruined with music. I made a video first. It was a positive video about computers, good things that computers have done for music. I'll leave that linked down below. Didn't want to start off on a negative note with that, but I know there were a lot of people in the comments that wanted to get ready to rip on computers and modern technology and everything like that, and how it has sort of been bad for music. Let's put it that way. So I came up with 5 points. These are in no particular order. All right, number 5. It's made music disposable. Let's face it, the people on my channel, most of us skew older, and we remember the days when you had to buy your music. And just like your parents always said, when you work for something, you appreciated more. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. You had to save up your money. I always talk about how I came from this rural, isolated town, had to drive 20, 30 minutes to the mall, only went there like every other month. So it was a real special thing. I saved up my money. It meant a lot to me. When I got my cassette tapes, I listened to them like crazy because I only had so much music there. I could only buy so much. I could only hear so much on the radio. I would tape things off the radio, stay up late at night, all excited, hoping to hear new music. Well, now, because of computers and streaming and technology, everything is just a click away. Everything is right there on your phone. You stick it in your pocket, you take it out. Basically, any song you want, you can listen to at any time. And it's made it disposable, and it's sort of cheapened it in a lot of ways. I mean, to sound like an old person here, you appreciate it more when you work for it. There is truth to that. And when something is just there and you can have it whenever you want it, anytime, any place, anywhere, it takes away from some of the special nature of it. You don't appreciate it as much because it's always there. When we were younger, people my age, we remember when we were teenagers and younger, first getting into music, you had to dedicate time to it. I would come home from school and go up to my room and listen to my cassettes. I eventually got a Walkman, and then I remember, wow, I can listen to it in the car now. Well, when my parents are taking me somewhere, we didn't have a cassette player in our car. My parents just had a radio, and that was it. So when you were listening to it, it was really, really special. Those radio shows, I talk a lot about how college radio played a big part in my early development, discovering songs. And I'd be so excited. Tuesday night, 7 to 9 is the metal show on this channel. And I'd be up ready for it, waiting, couldn't wait to hear what I was going to hear that week. So it really made it special. And I miss that. And, with modern technology, sometimes I force myself to get away from it and just focus on, because it can be overwhelming. Look, even just physical product, I've got so many records back here. Sometimes I think that I need to slow down and just focus in on certain records and just enjoy what I have before I bring in more stuff. That's hard to do when you're a collector, people who buy stuff like we do. As you know, it feels like you can never have enough. But I sort of long for those days where I had a limited amount of music, because it really made me appreciate what I had more. I really listened to those cassette tapes I had over and over again, and they were really, really special to me. And sometimes I think that there's just too much music, and it's just made it all sort of forgettable and disposable, which is a shame. I used to do these music challenges on my channel, and I haven't done one in a really long time. And I'm thinking of doing one where I go all analog for a week, where no digital music, where I only listen analog, like on my records. I do have a cassette player, but I don't have any cassettes left anymore. So it would pretty much just be listening to vinyl for a week, and to just completely get off the computer and only consume music analog. I still might do that challenge, so stay tuned. Okay, this sort of ties into my last video. Some of these are direct contradictions to what I said were good things about technology, and here's one of them. I talked about how computers was a good thing, that it broke down barriers for bands. You could be a band It used to cost a fortune. You'd release something. It was impossible for a radio or a record label to pick it up. It was very difficult. Now you can record something and it's on the computer, and you can put it up and it's on the streaming services 5 minutes later for the whole world. That's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And it's a bad thing because in the past, the record labels acted as sort of gatekeepers, which was kind of a negative. There were a lot of probably really good bands that never got heard outside of their town. But it also prevented just everybody from going or recording something and putting up. There's no barrier now. I can scream into a microphone. I can belch into a microphone for 40 minutes and make MP3s out of it and put it up on Spotify. And I mean, probably nobody will listen to it, but I can just put it up there. And what it does is it floods the field. I'm sure we all know the difficulty in this of trying to discover new music because there's so much stuff out there. It's really, really hard to wade your way through the rubbish and find the gems, the needles in the haystacks. It gets harder and harder because there's so much stuff out there, and it can feel really overwhelming. I'm a person that gets overwhelmed very easily. I mentioned before about liking to slow down and just focus on certain things. And technology, modern technology, the computer, the internet, streaming, that does not help with any of that. I often find myself on streaming just jumping around, not really focusing. Same thing on YouTube. I watch 2 minutes of a video, jump to another video. I see it with my videos, the statistics with my videos. Most people, if I have a 10-minute video, if people watch 5 minutes of it, that's like the average, and I get it because I do the same thing. It's like, I really feel like modern technology has rotted my brain in a lot of ways and made it hard for me to focus. I had a music challenge where I forget how I phrased it, but it was basically like I'm going to listen to a record every day for 7 days. And I'm only going to listen to the record. Not going to have my phone in front of me, not going to have my computer open. I'm just going to sit and listen. And it was oddly difficult for me to do that. It was hard for me to sit still for 40 minutes and just listen to a record. Whereas when I was younger, I used to just sit around listening to cassettes. I'd put a cassette on and look out my window and just listen to it, And it's almost hard for me to do that now because technology and everything has made it so that it's just like, wow, just move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing. And it's made everything just very disposable, as I mentioned in the first point. And to my second point, that it's too easy for bands to record. It's just overwhelmed everything, and everybody is just like an avalanche of music. And I guess you can never have too much music. And I'd say the positive in this is better than the negative because it does allow that diamond in the rough, some small band somewhere that maybe they under 20 years ago, 30 years ago would have never have had a chance, but they're able to get their music out there and able for people to hear it. Okay, the third point is sort of ties into this: computers in bands. It's made it too easy to fix and cheat when it comes to music. Quantizing. Quantizing is when you record on a computer and you press a button and it lines everything up with what's called the grid, so that everything's in time, everything's perfectly in time, every guitar hit is perfectly in time. You can auto-tune vocals, you can fix vocals, you can fix bands, you can fix drum beats. The drummer's off, you move this. The drummer, everything is triggered, so it's not really their drum sounds, synthetic drum sounds, and all this other stuff has made it way too easy for bands to fix and to cheat and to use the computer to augment the talent. Let's put it that way. Back in my day, bands had to record when they went into the studio. If it wasn't right, they had to fix it. Imagine that. Queen had to sing all those vocal parts in Bohemian Rhapsody. They couldn't couldn't sing it once and cut and paste it 20 times. They actually had to sing it. How nuts is that? So even on these early recordings where you hear things that maybe it's not as tight as it could be, or the vocals are slightly out of tune, it's almost endearing at this point because everything has been power washed and sterilized to the point that it's no wonder that AI is popular, because we've been leading towards AI, computerizing everything, making everything sound the same. It's It's a complaint that I have about modern recordings, that everything sounds the same. Maybe I'll save that as a topic for a different video. But computers have made it too easy for people, whereas in the past, you had to do it. And if you didn't have it, you didn't have it. Now, back in the day, like with a lot of the glam bands, the producer might bring in what were called ghost musicians, that guys that would come in and play the guitar solos and stuff like that. For instance, the Warrant record, I think the first Warrant record, the guitar solos aren't played by the guys in the band. That's what they had to do before computers. But computers have made it too easy for people to mask and cover up and make up for a lack of talent. Let's put it that way. All right, computers, technology. I'm specifically thinking of streaming in MP3. It has lowered the sound quality of music, or what people accept as acceptable sound quality. The bar has been lowered because of streaming. It started with MP3s. When MP3s first came out, they sounded like garbage. They were low quality, all swishy and noisy sounding. Spotify does not stream. Apple Music, which I use, streams lossless, which means it's like a CD quality. A lot of times on Apple Music, it's higher than CD quality. But there's a lot of there's streaming services where the quality has been lowered. And thus, there was a point in time where bands wanted to put out the greatest sounding record that they could put out, and they spent a lot of money to do that. Think Dark Side of the Moon and Fleetwood Mac and all those bands, Steely Dan, all those groups. They spent a ton of money to make the record sound amazing. Now it's kind of like, they're just going to be coming out of earbuds through Spotify, MP3s and stuff like that. Nobody cares. And so people's sort of level of what they expect to sound, what sounds good, has really been lowered. Whereas back in our day, the standards were a lot higher, because if you were just listening to Dark Side of the Moon and you put something else in, it's like, whoa, this doesn't sound as good as Dark Side of the Moon. The quality levels were much, much higher. And now, because of streaming, MP3s, computers, and everything like that, it's sort of lowered that bar of what people will say is acceptable or good. When I hear people talk, this mix is great, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I mean, this is terrible compared to some great album from the 70s or the 80s. All right, and the last point, this is technology. I'm going to put this with computers and the internet and social media, especially. Too much information. I did a video, don't remember what I called it. It was something like, is the mystique gone with music, or something like that. And my point is that there's so much information now through social media, through news sites, music news sites and music websites and stuff like that, that there's no sort of mystery around bands anymore. There was a point in time where I was like, wow, a picture of Black Sabbath with Ozzy. It was like, I've only seen so many pictures of Ozzy with Black Sabbath. Now it's just like, you type it in Google, you've got like, thousands of images, bands fighting back and forth. Not that didn't happen in the past, and not that it didn't make it to Hit Parade and things like that. But now it's to this obnoxious point where, you're constantly hearing about certain artists on Blabbermouth, and it's like, it's just like, go away. These people, it's too much information. It was better when you had a sort of guess about these bands. You sort of created images in your head of what these people were like. And now it's like, you hear so much from these people. They're putting out statements all the time. It's just everywhere all the time. It's too much. It's taken away from the mystique and the mystery around certain bands. So that comes in as my number 5 negative. All right. There are 5 negatives to modern technology and computers, what they've done to music. I know that there's people waiting to dump on modern technology. Have your go at it. Let's go. All those people of my age, give me all your, when I was young, we had to, I had to walk up a snowy mountain, to get my records, that kind of thing. Both ways, that kind of thing. Let's have at it. Let's dump on modern technology, how it has ruined music in some ways, how it has affected music and how we consume music, view music and everything, how it interacts with our lives in a negative way. Go for it down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of my picks. Do we see you again? Make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.